Hey, we don't have to graph them again. That's nice. Oh, it has the square root though in it. So I'm going to, for A, I'm going to let y equal g of f of x. Okay. One thing that I notice on tests and quizzes that sometimes happens is that people miss that the word has equation in it. If the question says write an equation has an equal sign and something on both sides. Sometimes people forget the equal sign and they just write the expression. And unfortunately, the exam is really picky about that. They're like, we asked you to write an equation and you didn't write an equal sign. We're mad. Well, they're not actually mad. They just take off a half mark. I don't think they're happy about it. No emotion involved whatsoever. But if I start with let y equal g of f of x, then I have my equation all the way through. So now y is equal to g of, and f of x was the square root of x. Oh, I like this question. I like lots of questions, I know, but this one has got some good problems that arise. Now what happens when you square root this? Well, when I plug this into g, what does g do? It squares whatever you plug in. What happens when you square a square root? Just becomes x, right? And that would just be x minus 4. Okay? This is one of those questions where if you just look at the final answer, I'm going to do two things wrong. This isn't hard to graph. So they said, if this said state the domain and graph, and I did this. Okay. All right. Here we go. X minus 4, that has a y-intercept of minus 4, a slope of 1. There we go. So what does that look like? My domain is everything. My range is everything. I'm so happy, and I lose like 2 marks on this question. My graph is wrong. My domain is wrong. What?
Negative x values are not allowed.
Right, negative x, like, look here. The domain at this part here, that's a 0. There we go. The domain for that part, you can't take the square root of a negative. So x has to be bigger than or equal to 0. I guess it's a good recovery. Maybe not. It's a sad looking 0. Very sad. So what does that mean for our graph? The domain here is wrong. We had to write the domain, and this came up on the exam. I'm going to say 2 years ago, January, they had this on the exam. Lots of people got the domain wrong. Because in the final answer, the domain is everything. But earlier on, you had a restriction. And so if there's a restriction earlier on, that restriction keeps going through. Because if you think about your garage and those 2 machines, right? It went into the F machine first and then into the G machine. And you're allowed to put anything into the G machine you want. But plugging in a negative number would have caused, right? There we go. Smoke, flames, stars flying. If you plugged in a negative 3, that's what would happen. It would blow up. And it doesn't matter what comes out. Nothing's going to come out because it already blew up. Even though G can accept any number, we have a problem. Okay? So we need to have this domain, and when we draw the graph, the actual graph would only be this part of the line. The negative part of the line you have to erase. And this would be the final answer. And then part B, f of g of x, so I'm gonna let y equal f of g of x. Y is equal to f of, now in this case, x squared minus 4, no problems here, right? Domain is everything. At this stage, our domain is still everything. But then we square root, and now we have a problem. Because you can only square root positive numbers. So then the x squared minus 4, figure out my domain, the x squared minus 4 has to be bigger than or equal to 0. How did we solve these inequalities? We made it temporarily equal to 0. Plus or minus 2 and solved it. Put minus 2 and 2 on the number line. Open circles and fill them in because they were equal. And we checked which things make this true. Minus 3, no, that's false. If I plug in 0, 0 minus 4, oh no, minus 3 is true. Oops, minus 3 squared would be not minus 9, it'd be plus 9. 9 minus 4 is bigger than, this section is true. This section is false. And anything bigger than 2, like 5, that for sure is going to be true. So my domain is x is less than or equal to negative 2, or x is bigger than or equal to 2. The or word isn't important. Don't say and. In mathematics, if you say and, both have to be true at the same time. And if I want to try to find a number that's less than negative 2 and also bigger than 2, you're basically saying there's no solution. So we can either write it this way, or you could go in interval notation. Square brackets because they're included. From negative infinity to negative 2, the big U means or, 2 to infinity. Okay. So both of these had weird domains as a result. Now you can circle the rest of 6. I know you circled 6D already. Now you can circle the rest of 6 and number 10.